Luigi Mangione has been charged with terrorism. But why? And also, why are federal prosecutors also indicting and prosecuting Mangione? Well, a New York State grand jury indicted Mangione on multiple charges related to the December 4th, 2024 shooting death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. The charges included first-degree murder in the furtherance of terrorism and second-degree murder as a crime of terrorism, as well as additional counts of criminal possession of a weapon and possession of a forged instrument. Now, the terrorism charges are notable. The prosecutors argued that Mangione committed the murder to intimidate or coerce a civilian population or influence government policy, violating New York's anti-terrorism statutes. Mangione has been extradited to New York to face these charges. His attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, has indicated plans to contest the charges, asserting that DA Alvin Bragg overcharged Mangione. At the time of his arrest, authorities found a 3D printed ghost gun, a suppressor, and a handwritten manifesto expressing animosity towards the U.S. healthcare system. Now, as usual for my substantive questions about New York criminal law, I've reached out to former AUSA and current New York criminal defense lawyer Mitch Epner about the indictments and why the feds are involved. So Mitchell, what we have here looks like a pretty straightforward murder case, so why would Alvin Bragg decide to add the terrorism charge?
Well, let me start.
Murder case, so and why the feds are involved. So Mitchell, what we have here looks like a pretty straightforward murder case, so why would Alvin Bragg decide to add the terrorism charge?
Is there like a charging document or anything for the Luigi guy? I don't understand where this, people keep saying terrorism charge. Are they just talking about the first degree murder thing, or is there a separate state charge for terrorism? He explains it in the video. Okay. Because when we looked at the terrorism thing, that was just the element that they were using to make it first degree murder. Also, this fucking, God, this guy is cringe. Wait, am I getting it right? The mayor of New York City? Also, people keep posting these things on Reddit like, oh, they need 4 cops to hold him down because he's so buff and epic. Oh, they're walking him with 20 cops, blah, 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 because he's so fucking strong and they're scared that all the CEOs are gonna die. No, they're walking with a ton of cops because you fucking retards are idolizing him and worshiping him in public, and they probably don't want somebody trying to break him out. Like, I don't know why everybody keeps posting this fucking everywhere. It's so cringe. Do you agree with the terrorism charge or no? It didn't look like, or at least I couldn't find, that he was charged with terrorism. In New York State, it looks like in order to have a first-degree murder charge, it looks like you have to add, there needs to be a second element to it that boosts it to first-degree murder. So you're guilty of murder in the first degree when, with the intent to cause the death of another person, he causes the death of such a person or a third person, and then you need one more element. And it looks like the element that they went with was the 13 here, is the victim was killed in furtherance of an act of terrorism, as defined in paragraph B, subdivision 1 of section 49, or 490.05 of this chapter. And I think when we read it, it seemed like it probably fit here. But it sounds like this is what they're using to make it a first-degree murder. I don't know if this is just like a special type of first-degree murder, or, but I don't know, maybe he'll go over in his video, I guess. Yeah. Well,
let me start, Devin, by agreeing with you. This is a very strange choice by the prosecution. They may have managed to indict Mr. Mangione for the one crime that he has a good defense.
Can you plead against an element, i.e. the charge, you mean EG, is for example, right? Or is i.e. such as? EG is for example, right? Can you plead against an element of the charge? No, I think you either plead guilty or not guilty. I don't know if you can plead guilty to some charges and then plead not guilty to other charges. I think you just enter one plea, no? I.e. that is, oh, wait, hold on. Can you plead not guilty to some charges and guilty to others? You must be able to plead not guilty to some and guilty to others. I feel like I have people that have given me logins to this shit and I don't know what it is. My guess is that you can plead not guilty to some charges. I doubt it would have to be all or nothing.
To indict Mr. Mangione for the one crime that he has a good defense to. The reason for bringing a murder one charge, which is a very particular thing under New York law, as opposed to a murder two charge, is I think they want the headlines of saying that they charged him with murder one as opposed to murder two. And we can talk in a moment about what the substantive differences are between them. But the most basic difference in terms of if they get a conviction is if he is convicted of murder one under these circumstances, the required punishment will be life without the possibility of parole. Whereas if he's only convicted of murder two without the special circumstances of terrorism, there would be the possibility that 20 years down the road, he would be eligible for parole. Having said that, I cannot imagine a circumstance under which Mr. Mangione would be considered a good candidate for parole at any point in his life.
Is there any substantive difference between murder two and murder one with the terrorism charge?
Yeah, that's the big thing. There is a difference in penalty because if convicted of murder one on the basis of terrorism, then the penalty is required to be life without possibility of parole.
Okay, and if Mangione is convicted of murder two and was up for parole, do you think he would be continually denied?
I think it's the latter. I think that if he is convicted on murder two, and he lives long enough to see his parole date, there would be a pro forma parole hearing. Have
you seen people claiming he's not getting a fair trial because of the judge's stock portfolio? Yeah, I've heard because the judge is dating somebody. Where's Pisco, actually? I have a really interesting question. If he's in here, little fuckboy.
Years from now, 30 years from now, and it would be like the early scenes in Shawshank Redemption where they just rubber stamped denied each time.
What makes someone a good or bad candidate for parole?
A bad candidate for parole is somebody who committed a crime of violence, check, who did it with malice aforethought, check, and who seemed to show no remorse, check. No matter what he does in the future, I cannot imagine a situation where a parole board would say this man, Luigi Mangione, appears to have understood that what he did was wrong, since he seems so clearly at this moment to believe that what he did was right.
So what is the process?
Hey, hello.
Merry Christmas, my brother. How are you?
Merry Christmas Eve, bitch. In some countries, they have like really strict gag orders about talking about any stuff related to an ongoing trial. And then in the United States, obviously, we're very, very open about it beforehand. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that in general? What do you think is the right course there in terms of like policing a jury and everything else? Yeah,
I think that I'm a free speech kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it makes sense to have pretty lax laws about like, having these trials be public, having people like have access to the documents, and having free and open discourse about it. I'm just a little bit of a free speech guy, so I like our system. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings one way or another. I can see arguments on both sides that like how do you, assuming a thing has gotten like a certain amount of publicity, how do you ever find like an unbiased jury to come in and like make a decision?
Yeah, it's kind of like a legal fiction. Yeah, like the Trump case. We just have to, and the fact that judges are presumed to be impartial as well. I mean, it's just is there a better system?
No, but I mean, like a judge, I mean, you can hope because a judge, one, has to rule on a ton of different cases, and then two, has some level of like training and sometimes is elected or at least appointed. Like you're hoping there's a qualification there, but for a jury, it should just be like a jury of ordinary citizens, right?
I think DGG should be a professional jury pool. They're just like really good at finding shit out. What do you think about that?
Finding shit out. Are they good at making judgments of right or wrong though? Or whether or not somebody is guilty or not guilty?
They're kind of a cult. Do you think that your fan base is a little bit of a cult? Like you'll say something and they'll follow it?
I mean, if that's the definition of a cult, then sure. But I mean, like literally every single thing in the world would be a cult at that point, right?
They're loyal to you though, don't you think?
Not as loyal as some fan bases are.
No, I think that DGG would be an excellent jury pool. It's for some of these high-profile cases, it's like impossible not to have some influence, or I should say, some visibility of current events, like the Trump trial. How do you like ignore the fact that Trump was the president when you're, litigating whether he's guilty of falsification of his records or of the other crimes?
Yeah,
Seems hard to disentangle the public nature of it.
Yeah, it's probably really difficult. I think that's probably why in like in closing statements in criminal cases, a lot of the times you'll hear like the plaintiff or the defense will literally repeat like, these are your instructions. Remember, you can only convict if they did this. It doesn't matter how you feel about. Yeah, they'll like repeat those jury instructions because it's so important to make sure the jury understands what they're actually returning a verdict on. Yeah. Yeah,
and sometimes you're allowed to introduce evidence for one purpose, but not another. So, for example, let's say that you have a statement that is hearsay, but you're allowed to introduce it to show that the person who asserted it is, not a credible witness.
Sure.
The judge literally has to instruct you can't use this statement for the truth of the matter asserted, only for the credibility of the witness. And the human brain just like doesn't work like that. It's not really easy to be like, hey, you can consider this hearsay statement, but only insofar as it lends to the credibility of this witness, but you can't consider it as truth or false. I think a lot of these are just pretend little games we play. At the end of the day, we hope that it helps insulate some improper considerations, but I don't know how much these jurors are parsing out the different purposes and the bunch of different instructions they're getting for each like particular piece of evidence sometimes. So yeah, I don't know.
A lot of these are probably like ammo that jurors themselves can use too, right? Like I imagine if they go back and they're fighting with each other, you know, a jury might say,
"I said we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, we're not supposed to have. We can't consider this." Yeah, I've had emails from a lot of lawyers, criminal people that also complain that like you can do, there are like objections and you can strike things from the record and you can do this as well, but like apparently every litigator knows that there's criminal law that like you can't ever really strike something from a jury's mind. So even if something is done improperly, like if a jury's heard something, it's like that's probably always going to be considered. Yeah,
that's why you for some of the part of the motion that Trump was putting forth to get rid of the New York case. One of the reasons that it was denied is because his lawyer kind of like introduced it and kind of opened the door to certain testimony. And then you can see like, well, how come you're allowed to go into the official act stuff or my communications with an actual government employee? Well, if you open the door to it, you're kind of waiving it, right? So I can understand why like once you open the door, once you ring the bell, it's hard to unring it. And now we have to have like an open playing field.
Oh, sure. That's like if I'm like, I think if I'm on a criminal trial, if I'm a defendant and somebody is wants to say that like, oh, well, we've got evidence here that this guy is actually like he lies about everything he says or whatever, that might be character evidence that is not admissible because it's not related to the crime. But if I am, as part of my defense, if I bring up like unrelated stuff to show that I am like of high character and I never lie, then you can admit that character evidence to rebut like positive character evidence. Or
have you been doing evidence reading? Jeez.
Well, no.
When's your lawyer arc?
Look up. Yeah. Well, I've been watching Suits a lot, so you know I'm going to do that corporate stuff like you do. Yeah. Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Like, you're not supposed to offer bolstering testimony to show that you're of good moral character with like specific instances. It's pretty complicated sometimes, but and the distinctions are a little weird. But if some like party opens the door on shit, then remember when the Rittenhouse trial happened? Like, I believe the prosecutor
those evidentiary hearings or the pretrial evidence stuff, because there was one thing that the prosecutor explicitly asked about entering. I think it had to do with a statement that Rittenhouse had made outside of a store beforehand, and he tried to bring that up in the trial. And I think the judge dismissed the jury and everything, and like basically excoriated him in the courtroom after the jury was gone because he tried to bring that up after the judge had explicitly denied him the ability to do that. Oof, yeah.
I think 20% of your political problems, of you specifically, Stephen, your political problems can be traced back to Kyle Rittenhouse deciding to go to defend property that day.
Deciding to, do you really? Maybe, I don't know.
Like, how much worse is your life that Kyle Rittenhouse is cringe as fuck and is like a big Trump guy? I feel like that's major. Or do you think that makes your life better because you're more credible?
Well, yeah, I was going to say it depends on how you view it because, like, in a very downstream way, probably all of my big conservative debates happened because of the Rittenhouse thing and because that thing got me some credibility with people on the right.
And now you got the Luigi fans.
Guy, yeah. But I just.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It feels gross, and I don't want any of it. Like I tweeted out the other day yesterday, something like all the people crying about Rittenhouse are now like cheering on the Luigi guy, which I thought was crazy. And obviously I get like a ton of people underneath this tweet who are like, wow, base tweet, I actually agree with this. But like every single person that's saying base tweet, I agree, are all probably J6 deniers. It's like, I don't like any of you people either.
What's your best good faith interpretation of like the leftist embrace of Luigi in view of their hatred of Kyle Rittenhouse? What's your best interpretation of that?
Well, I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse is a defender of structures relating to capital control and white supremacy, and he was just exercising that power difference as he goes to a community that's negatively impacted by white supremacist communities, white supremacist police force, and finds himself in a conflict that could have easily been avoided because he was looking from the very beginning to kill anybody that identified with the other side. And then for the Luigi stuff, Luigi represents basically an ordinary citizen who is striking out against the ownership class, who through a complicated exchange of lobbying and big business and capitalist owners and CEOs and shareholder value are seeking to perpetually oppress U.S. citizens and cut off their access to healthcare in order to enrich themselves. And it's come to the point where the only way to stop that is through violent means. And the most effective people to target are the owners of companies, basically, right?
Do you think that if the killing had been this was a brutal bushwhacking, all right? Mm-hmm. But suppose that it were like they light him on fire like it did that woman in the subway. Do you think that would, like, if it were more horrific, or if it were sexual in nature, or if it were with a knife, do you think that changed anything?
Well, sexual in nature is a whole different thing. If it was like setting him on fire or something, I think that the support would be quite a bit not quite a bit. I think there would be people around the margins that would fall off, but I don't know if it would change it substantially. But I think it would probably be a bit less, yeah.
Here's my issue with all this is it feels like there are very few people that are parsing out each of these incidents that run the gamut from like clearly justified to incredibly unjustified and having some kind of reasonable basis to distinguish based on like the law and facts, as opposed to, oh, well, my analysis for the Daniel Perry or whatever is he's like, it falls along my social ideology or my cultural values, or in the case of like,
I think that's the vast majority of it, but yeah.
You know, it's like, it has a lot to do with identity and not so much about the particulars of the self-defense or the use of force in each particular case.
Yeah, of course.
Like the Fuentes case, another, I think, good example of that, where, what do you think of that? That was pretty wild. It was like an attack on his, not the Mace incident, but the attempted assassination.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, obviously it was really bad. Yeah, of course, that was insane, yeah.
But I saw some people being like, based, like, they're pissed off that the assassins like weren't successful. I don't know. To me, it has me more thinking like of the Trump situation, the Trump assassination attempt, that all this shit is bad, and we shouldn't be like glorifying killing on purpose for no reason.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing in general. Once you've hit the point where you're starting to kill people over your political differences, it's probably never a good thing.
Yeah. How are you?
Just chilling. Waiting for the new year to roll around so I have a new direction and everything, yeah.
Yeah, some good shit. Well, listen, I want to wish everyone in DGG a very happy holiday and Merry Christmas. I think you guys are a good community, and I hope nothing but the best for you all in the year to come.
Oh, well,
all right.
I love you too. Happy Merry Christmas. I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah, talk soon.
Have fun. Bye. Okay.
Prosecution need to prove for murder 1 with the terrorism aggravated factor on top of what they would normally need to show for murder in the second degree.
So murder in the second degree is very simple. You intended to kill somebody. You did it intentionally. You didn't do it in self-defense. That is as open and shut a case as I can imagine, because they have Mr. Mangione doing it on videotape, approaching somebody from behind, shooting him 3 times, starting in his leg, and then shooting him twice in the back. And I take at face value the public disclosures that they have many different ways to tie Mr. Mangione to the murder, including the fact that he was found in possession of the murder weapon. So that is as open and shut a murder 2 case as I can imagine. Murder 1, on the other hand, will require proof as to what Mr. Mangione was thinking at the time he did this. And they would have to prove, and I'm reading now, intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion, or affect the conduct of a unit of government. And that is a very hard thing to prove. They will have to prove that when he killed Mr. Thompson, he didn't do it because he hated Mr. Thompson alone, or because he hated the way Mr. Thompson ran United Healthcare alone, but rather that he had some broader policy agenda to intimidate people in order to change the way in which government worked or the general populace conduct.
I mean, this is going to come down. I didn't read any of the manifesto shit because I can't tell what's being released that's real or not real or whatever the fuck. But assuming the manifesto and everything is real, I feel like this might be like pretty easy now. But
to themselves. That's a very hard thing to do. One of the basic...
You mean he literally had the bullets inscribed? Was there actual writing on the casings? Is that true?
Things that I was taught as a trial practitioner is keep it simple, stupid. The KISS principle. If you can win your case by proving 4 things, don't try to increase the degree of difficulty by proving 12 things.
Well, but you're talking about 2 different charges though, right? In New York State, can you charge first and second degree? Why is it that in some cases you can, or in some states you can do this and in some states you can't? I don't know in New York State if it's like this or not. I don't even know where the fuck I would look this up.
The increase in what they have to prove here.
Bro, just read the indictments. Are those public? Indictments, Luigi. I don't know if you have to, I don't know when you make an indictment or not, or why you need an indictment versus just like in an arraignment, you read somebody's charges. This is federal. I don't care. I don't know if there's like a New York State like indictment or charging document for him. New York charges. Oh, there is. Hold on. Oh, grand jury indictment, everything. Okay. Do they always do grand jury indictment? Okay, so we have murder in the first degree, and we have murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. And finally, okay, this also is the terrorism thing to make it murder in the first degree. I wonder why they have murder in the second degree as a crime of terrorism. What does that mean? Penal Law 12525, Section 1, New York State. Murder in the second degree. Huh. I don't know what the, as a crime of terrorism, I don't know what this add-on means. The defendant in the County of New York on or about December 4th, 2024, with the intent to intimidate or coerce the civilian population, influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion or affect the economy. Murder in the second degree. I don't know why you knew that for murder in the second degree, no clue. And then they have just an ordinary, oh, maybe there's like a greater penalty if it's as a crime of terrorism. And then you also have the third count is just murder in the, okay, so you can charge, I don't know if this is called charge down the line. I feel like I heard that expression once and then I said it, and then I feel like somebody said they don't call it charging down the line. Or maybe it's called lesser incorporated charges might be it too. I don't remember, something like that. When you charge one, it automatically assumes the other. I don't know. Okay. Murder in the second degree is a crime of terror. Okay. And the third count, as the grand jury has said, by this indictment further accuses them of murder of the second degree without any terrorism thing. And then criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of a weapon, criminal possession of a weapon. Okay. Oh, all the magazine. Okay.
Here is enormous. And I think it violates the KISS principle very fundamentally.
It's reported that Mangioni's manifesto reads, quote, "Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the US has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United is the indecipherable largest company in the US by market cap, behind only Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but has our life expectancy. No, the reality is this indecipherable have simply gotten too powerful, and that they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously,
oof, I feel like this is going to be, would this not count as terrorism? I feel like it's going to be hard to escape when you're literally writing manifestos. Oh, man.
the problem is more complex, but I do not have the space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument, but many have illuminated corruption and greed decades ago, and the problems simply remain. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. So is it possible that a jury could look at these writings and conclude beyond reasonable doubt that by executing the CEO of United Healthcare, he did intend to bring about some kind of change in US healthcare for the purposes of the terrorism aggravated factor?
They'd have to prove much more than that. They would have to prove not just that he intended to bring about change, but that he intended to do it by intimidating the people in the government. It's not enough to raise the issue and say, hey, here are the things that I think are bad about United Healthcare, why I'm deciding to kill this person. But they essentially have to put the people in government in fear that if they don't act to make the changes that he's advocating, that they will get killed also. That's what...
I don't know what the standard is for this type of crime is. I don't know what other... I don't know like what the precedence is or how many other cases have been charged like this and what they have to prove.
the terrorism enhancement looks like.
Now, obviously, if you're charged with terrorism, you'll want a good lawyer. But if you want a great lawyer, let my law firm, the Eagle Team, help. If you've gotten in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you got a data breach letter saying your information might have been leaked, or are dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. Because it's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description or call the phone number on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team. It seems to me that one reason of including murder in the first degree with a terrorism aggravated factor is that the prosecution is very confident that they will get a conviction on murder too, which is a lesser included offense. What do you think about that?
That's what okay, lesser included offense. Okay.
That's possible. I think it's also highly possible that they've done it because they want the headlines of saying they're seeking murder in the first degree.
Now, by bringing in this terrorism charge, is it possible that the prosecutors are making their lives unnecessarily difficult in a way that might backfire?
So there are a couple of additional thoughts. One is that the problem for the prosecution in doing it this way is when they make his intent not just relevant, but an element of the crime, they're going to give him, if they go to trial, the world's biggest soapbox to say all of these things. And that is raising the possibility of jury nullification. Jurors may or may not agree with what he did. Some jurors might identify with Mr. Thompson, but some jurors might think that United Healthcare is a really awful organization, and have sympathy with Mr. Mangione, or at least Mr. Mangione's grievances against United Healthcare. All of that could have been kept out of a Murder 2 trial, and all of that would have to come into a Murder 1 trial. And then the second thing is Mr. Mangione has as his attorney Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who is was a veteran of about 30 years in the Manhattan DA's office. She left relatively recently. She is as well-versed, well-connected, and well-experienced a lawyer as you're going to find. And I suspect that any good defense argument she will raise. They do not have a walkover here. They have a very skilled advocate on the other side.
And any idea when this trial will be scheduled and actually take place?
I have no idea when trial will take place. I am certain that the defense, given the fact that Mr. Mangione will be held without bail, almost certainly at Rikers, which is about as bad a place as you can find on the planet.
What would you tell a group of friends who just support this guy because healthcare bad, too much profits? I would say, why don't you get mad at the hospitals for turning patients down?
Will want to have trial as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Mitch, but hold tight because I have a few questions about the federal prosecution as well. Now, the Department of Justice has also indicted Mangione of murder through the use of a firearm, 2 stalking charges, and a firearms offense. The federal prosecutors claimed jurisdiction because Mangione traveled in interstate commerce when he took a bus from Atlanta to New York before the shooting. And the indictment alleges that he used interstate facilities by using a cell phone and the internet to plan and carry out the stalking, shooting, and killing of Brian Thompson in the vicinity of West 54th Street and 6th Avenue in Manhattan. And as part of that showing, they charged Mangione with 2 counts of stalking. Basically, the federal prosecutors seem to be establishing that they have jurisdiction for the prosecution. Now, some of the highlights of the affidavit by FBI agent David Cobb include a photograph of the gun that agents found with Mangione, a handwritten diary with entries such as, quote, "I'm glad in a way that I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about acronym for company number 1. The notebook entry also stated that the target is insurance because it checks every box." And quote, "The investor conference is a true windfall, and most importantly, the message becomes self-evident."
Why are more people mad at insurance companies rather than hospitals? Because for a hospital, you can see what they do that provides like a service to society. It feels good. They have doctors and they heal people. And for any kind of insurance company, it feels like they're just there to fuck you over, basically. Keep in mind too, like what insurance like represents and what it means, and like the types of like where are you at in life when you deal with insurance, right? It's always going to be at the worst parts of your life. Nobody is ever happy. Like the fact that you're, it's like the joke that you make, like when I'm calling a lawyer or whatever, like, oh, hey, how are you doing today? And it's like, well, obviously not very good because I'm calling you, right? Yeah, like obviously this is not a good day for me. I've got to fucking make a call to you. It's the same thing with insurance as well, right?
And later on in the entry, the notebook describes an intent to, quote, whack the CEO of one of the insurance companies at the investor conference. There's also a letter addressed to the, quote, feds, which reads, quote, "I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial, some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, and a lot of patience." The Fed letter also states, quote, "P.S. You can check serial numbers to verify this is all self-funded, my own ATM withdrawals." Now, needless to say, this does not look good for Mangione from a criminal defense perspective. So let's go back to Mitch Ebner. Mitch, why do you think it was important for the feds to indict for the same conduct here?
I would absolutely expect that once the Trump administration is in place, that they will seek the death penalty against Mr. Mangione.
I thought you were broke before. Did you forget avoiding hospital visits or emergency vehicles because they are way overpriced in our country? I've never had to call an ambulance for, number 1. And number 2, I had a military dependent ID card, so I could always go to base if I needed to go to a hospital or something. And that shit is free as fuck. I can't speak to all of the VA or everything else or whatever. I know that it's like a big meme publicly to shit on the VA all the time. In my personal experience, military-related health insurance is fucking insane, like insanely good, and is probably too good because my grandma abused the fuck out of it. My parents abused the fuck out of it, and it always seemed like it was fucking free. My grandma was the kind of person who would go to the emergency room or take us to the emergency room if we had like a sniffle. Like if she took our temperature and we had like a fever of like 99.8, like we were going to the emergency room, and we would always get antibiotics or some stupid crazy shit. It was it was fucking retarded. But that was, I don't know. Yeah.
Which is, as I just said, a penalty that would not be available if there were prosecution under New York State.
That obviously doesn't apply to all Americans. Can you speak to the average person? I don't know, the average person for what? The average person has healthcare or health insurance through their work. I don't remember if I had health insurance through my casino job. I probably did, but I don't think I never had to call any. I'm not a very sick person, so I don't know what you want to do.
State law.
And who's likely to prosecute first, the federal government or the state?
I know for a fact that there are laws and rules about how the decision gets made by the courts about which prosecution goes first. I imagine that over the next few weeks and months, that will be sorted out. Ordinarily, this gets sorted out by an agreement amongst the prosecutors about which case will go first. So under those circumstances, ordinarily you would expect that the state and the feds would decide who went first. Here, given the relationship between the New York law enforcement authorities who prosecuted Donald Trump only recently in the Manhattan DA's office and the Trump DOJ, I'm not certain that that will.
Why does it sound like he's recording next to a highway? He has some kind of really harsh noise gate on that's like suppressing background noise when he's not speaking into his mic, and he has an air conditioner running or a fan. So when he's not talking, it's muted, but when he's talking, you're hearing that fan or AC come through. That's the background noise.
Only recently in the Manhattan DA's office and the Trump DOJ, I'm not certain that that will be a easy conversation. We'll keep paying attention.
Thanks so much, Mitch. It's always incredible to talk to people who have a completely different point of reference when it comes to the law. Now, this video was only possible with the help of today's sponsor, Nebula. Now, my first video on the United Health murder and Luigi Mangione was completely demonetized and age-gated on YouTube. 1.1 million people watched the first video in the first day, and then basically no one else saw it afterwards. In that video, I showed the surveillance footage, and apparently YouTube didn't like that, which is crazy because it was blurred, and according to community guidelines, it shouldn't have been a problem. But I don't have to worry about that on Nebula, the streaming site that my friends and I created from scratch. On Nebula, you can watch all of our videos ad-free and early because our videos always go up on Nebula first. Plus, there's tons of exclusive content, and for a limited time, you can get a lifetime membership. Wow. You can buy once and then never again. It's the greatest deal of all. And if you're new here, Nebula includes tons of exclusive videos from me, original series from your favorite people, movies, plays, classes, and more. I've heard it described as Netflix for people who like trains, with your favorites like Johnny Harris, Neo, Jet Lag, Real Engineering, Real Life Lore, and your most favorite, Legal Eagle. And exclusives on Nebula are incredible. Recently, I was watching the Riff Tracks commentary of Plan 9 from Outer Space. It was a perfect video for Halloween, and I'm really looking forward to the film that my friend Patrick Willems is creating called The Dinner Plan, filled with people that you've probably seen before. And you can see exclusive Legal Eagle videos like my documentary, Bad Law Works Good, and other content that just wouldn't fit on YouTube, like my full-length interview with the screenwriter, my cousin Vinny, and the Not Safe for Work video about lawsuits that are too hot for YouTube.
Whoa.
Because what's truly special about Nebula is that it's a creator-owned platform built by me and other YouTubers and podcasters, and because it's a subscription service, we get to work on larger, higher-budget productions than we ever could anywhere else.
How would you fix that, Destiny? Fix what?
It's becoming the answer to the question, how do you get Hollywood-level production value without Hollywood-level BS? And for those of you that want to share everything Nebula has to offer with your friends and family this holiday season, Nebula is now offering annual gift cards. So if you sign up using the link that's on screen right now, you can give a year of Nebula to a friend for 40% off the yearly subscription. That's a year of the best content for just $36. And it's a gift that you can give to yourself, by the way, because you deserve it. So get 40% off of you or a friend's yearly subscription for just $36, or you can check.
Oh, the audio thing? I don't know. I get different people say different things. At first I had no noise gate, and then some people get mad because they hear background noise. Then I set a really harsh noise gate, and then some people get really mad because it comes in and out. So now I have like a medium-ish noise gate, so if there's background noise, it's a little quieter, but it's not super harsh, so you can kind of hear it. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I think it's okay right now.
Check out the lifetime deal where for $300, you get access to Nebula forever. Now we're investing in more big concept, high octane Nebula originals, and your lifetime subscription goes towards that investment. In a way, lifetime is the best possible deal of all. But either way, you'll get all my videos early, get access to exclusives, and support the ambitious projects that my friends and I are working on our own streaming site. So sign up now and get you or a friend 40% off of Nebula, or get the incredible lifetime deal by clicking on the link below. And after that, click on this link over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.
Wow. Are women that are afraid to say I love you red flags and should be avoided?
2025 is already
I mean, that super depends on the reason why and how long you've been dating, and I don't know, there's like a million variables there. What is this?
Watch the video. Watch the
Hassan can't keep Destiny's name out of his mouth. What is this? What is the date? I'm assuming these are recent. Destiny, people in America simply because they are financially are forced to avoid medical treatment. Oh, people die in America simply because they financially are forced to avoid medical treatment. That is what makes our life expectancy lower along with obesity. If I had to guess, it's probably a negligible impact on life expectancy for avoiding medical stuff. My guess is our life expectancy is probably heavily driven by things like suicide, opiates, obesity, and heart disease, and things like murder rate and infant mortality. That'd be my I guess. Car accidents? I don't know how big car accidents are in the USA versus other countries. Car accidents per capita, fatality, worldwide. We're at 106.